Major NBA trade today. No, not the major one. Not the major one. Not the big ones. And we're like thinking of fall. But one I did not see coming. I was like, the Memphis Grizzlies traded Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic for basically KCP, Cole Anthony, and four first round picks. Now, I'm going to get this out the way. I did not see this as the Memphis trade that was going to happen. I didn't think that. I thought maybe there could be some speculation about Ja, but at the same time, I was like, I didn't think it was going to be this year. I was like, that to me seemed like a next year thing to see how it all happens. But also, there's certain teams that I'm just like, I just don't. I was like, while it's fun to speculate and maybe think about, but there's some teams that I'm just like, they can't really get rid of their star player. You know, Memphis is one of them with Ja. I think the Hornets with like LaMelo, of like, and what I mean is that at some point you're gonna start feeling like, are they gonna get rid of this player? I think Phoenix with Booker is gonna be one of them at some point as well too. But anyway, get out of that speculation. We're gonna go here with this Desmond Bane thing. And while I know everybody's sort of going crazy about like, oh, Desmond Bane for first round pick, because the first round picks is always something that we're always really like fixated on, you know, especially like Mikal Bridges went for 5 not too long ago. I was like Carl Anthony Towns. You know, that's a big name in that sense or whatever. But basically, it's the first round picks. But I think this is actually a trade that works out for both squads. And I was like, I don't know if you can. I was like, to be honest, I was like, we've been getting a lot more of those that I feel like have helped both teams. To be honest, I think the Carl and the Julius Randle sort of has helped both teams in some ways, while also sort of like hindering them. But I was like, I don't think it was like a mood trade to me. Anyway, the 4 first round picks to me don't really matter in the same way that everybody, like, I was like, yeah, it's like the 4, but I was like, I feel like we're counting these first round picks too much than what they used to when it was like used to like hold weight. Now I just feel like they're just sort of just trade chips. They're just sort of just things to like make the trade really good and all this other stuff and look good and things like that. But it really just depends on where the team is or what. Kind of like if you get 4 first round picks, say from Oklahoma City, I was like, that could be a good thing because they got picks from everywhere. But like, say you get like a whole bunch of picks from the Celtics, because you always know that they're gonna be at the bottom. You get what I'm saying? So I was like, I think it always depends on where the pick come from and all this other stuff. But anyway, I was like, this to me, this helps out both teams and it works out with both teams. Is Desmond Bane on that level of the 2 players versus with the first round picks? Probably not at the first thought. But with Magic, I don't really think that's a big thing because to be honest, with a team that's young like that, the first round picks really don't really mean to. I was like, you're only going to really hold so many young people at a time, so it doesn't really that's why I said it doesn't really hold the same weight to me. Like if I like Atlanta not like trading away their first round picks, that's different. They're a team that really doesn't have like who like they sort of done soured on Trae Young, and then it's like who the rest of the other players that you're trying to get to. But let's just go with the Magic side of it first. And I was like, the Magic needs a guy that can score and can shoot threes. And to me, Desmond Bane comes into that better package. I was like, I think what they failed to get out of KCP, they're getting out of Desmond Bane. You're not going to necessarily get the defense that KCP gets out of that, but I was like, you do get somebody who can fill it up. Yes, he can sometimes just like be a volume scorer and stuff like that. But I think one with Franz and Paulo, who are basically going to be the 1-2, and Desmond going to be in the 3. Well, 3-4, depending on how Suggs comes back into the mold, because I was like, I think that really did change the trajectory of that team. I was like, I think Desmond Bane fits that he gives them an outside scoring presence, and you can't leave him alone. I was like, not just that, but also the difference between him and KCP is that Desmond Bane can also get his own shot in a different way, to where it's like now everybody can't just stay on where we're just going to double team Franz or we're just going to double team Paulo, and everybody else just trying to figure that thing out. So I was like, from that perspective, I was like, that works. Also, there's nobody on their team that they're paying any money, so his contract doesn't mean nothing over there. I was like, Paulo, I was like, Franz, I was like, yeah, he got his money, but I was like, it's not that big a deal. They're still early on, and Paulo is not going. I was like, I think he's still like a year or so out. I was like, I ain't checking that shit, but you get what I'm saying. So, but I was like, once that team goes together, I was like, they got 3 young players. And Desmond Bane is still a young guy, even though he's been in the league a while but he also been in the playoffs a while as well too. So you don't have to worry about that. He done had his playoff series, so it's not like you're getting a well-established player. That's what I'm saying. And I was like, I think he'll give them the juice they need on offense that they don't really have anywhere else. He's also played with Jaren Jackson and Ja to where it's like, all right, can he be the man at nights? Yeah, because he had to, because they used to have injuries all the time on Memphis with those 2 guys. But if he also got to step back, and I was like, step back, in a similar way, he can, while also still getting his points. So it's like, it opens up the floor for the rest of them. It gives them another scoring option. And I always felt like that was the matter problem. They didn't have another scoring option, whether that was in their starting lineup or off their bench as well. So I was like, to me, this works out really well for him, and he fits the timeline of the team as well. And also in the East, I was like, in the East, it would not surprise me if he was able to slip into an All-Star spot. I was like, we seen it with Tyler Hero this year. That was like, he went bonkers. He was able to get himself into a spot. To me, that's what Bane can do. He wasn't gonna do that in the West because I feel like they got more guards in the West than they do in the East. Because I was like, Mitchell, he'll always be there. Garland, it depends. Maxey, it depends. I like Dame is going to be out. I guess Jaylen Brown sort of counts as a guard, so I was like, he'll be there. Maybe I was like White. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody standing in the way. That I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if he did step into a All-Star game next year playing with this team. But the Magic is not really that far away either. I think there's still some pieces they still got to sort of figure out. But I think they pretty much sort of got their team with Suggs coming back, Black on the team. I was like, they got a good forward center combination with Isaac and Wendell Carter. We'll see if Bo comes back to that team. But I was like, it fills out their team. It fills out their team nicely to where their starting unit of Suggs, Bane, Franz, Paulo, whoever they decide to put at, I would like play at that center spot. I was like, they're good. I was like, in the East, I was like, they can easily be. They would probably just be basically where they're at. Cleveland pretty much gonna stay at that same spot. I was like, the Celtics, even though they lost Tatum, I was like, unless they just start jettisoning contracts off like during this offseason, I was like, they'll play themselves into like a top 3 spot. You don't know what's going to happen with Milwaukee, but if Giannis is there, I was like, he can at least get them to a number 4, number 5 seed. Indiana going to be in there, and the Knicks. So I was like, they're right in that 5 range spot, and so it's like, I don't think it propels them to being like top seed in the East, but I do think now they got a fighting chance, because I was like, Apollo is as special as what he has shown. I was like, still got to take that next step. So does Franz, but I was like, I don't see why they can't take that next step to basically match what you see from Indiana, what you've seen from the Knicks, what you've seen how the Celtics propelled themselves. I think they're just right. And in the East, I was like, to me, this is a move that helps them out in these type of series, where just like things get stagnant in the half court and all that stuff. Bane can help out with that. The Memphis side is where I think that I do think KCP will have a better year with them than he did with Orlando. I think there was just so much on him going to Orlando and being like that veteran presence, being that veteran guy, giving him that 3-point shooting that he didn't really replicate that you needed him to have. But I just think that it was looking for too much for him to be on that team that we did. I was like, Suggs had a breakout year later on after those 2 got hurt, but you wasn't counting on that. I was like, you were waiting on Franz and Apollo, and they were playing really well before they all just started just getting hurt and not being able to play with each other. And I was like, towards the second half of the year. But I think on the Memphis team that is really just like, yo, we just need a defensive guy. We need a three-point shooter. We don't need anything else from you. We're not asking any more from you. I think that fits really well with them. Cole Anthony, I think they got like a good spark out of like with Scottie Pippen Jr. and stuff like that. I think he gives you another dude who can also just score on the offense, and maybe they'll give him actual minutes to play as well. I was like, especially with sort of the new style and them getting up and down, I think he'll fit really well and get some more burn over there to actually be able to be sort of the scoring six man that we sort of thought he would be. Because I was like, towards the end of the year, he was over here I was like, he the one that sort of got them from the I was like, I think it was the playing game, and then we ain't really see him anymore after that. I was like, the way Memphis plays and the way that some of them dudes get hurt, I think it's good insurance to have multiple point guards on that team. I was like, John gets hurt, and just the way they sort of play up and down, I think Cole Anthony will help there. What I think this is really just sort of a play more so is for the future. That's where the 4th round pick. They're going to have to re-sign Jaren Jackson again. He's going to get a big ass contract. I was like, even if they keep Ja, you starting to see the teams being like, yo, we got to get off of this third contract type of person. You see them with Minnesota, where they basically was like, oh man, we got Rudy, we're gonna have to get rid of Karl Anthony Towns, and that's sort of what I was like, and that's sort of what they had to do. You're gonna see that with teams where just like the money and with his apron, and they're just not gonna be able to do it. So I think those two players will help them in some form or facet. I was like, but the 4 first-round picks, that's what you're sort of banking on, is that you're going to be able to get cheap contracts. Hopefully you get some decent players in the draft. Because Memphis do seem to find really good players at really, like, contract value or whatever, or you didn't see coming. G.G. Jackson, Huff. I was like, they had David Roddy for a minute. You know, like, they always able to find a few players they could plug in and stuff like that. But that 3 spot has always been tricky with them, and now, you know, so it's still going to be there. They still never found like that guy that they need at that spot. But this is really just to me, this is a long-term move, so that because they won't have the money on that contract. But I think it's a good move because it's like Jaren Jackson and Ja are still young to where it's like, if you do get the right dudes in there, to me, worst case scenario, you find a guy that's able to plug in and be in that spot and help them, and because they do sort of need. I guess we don't really do 3 and D anymore in that type of way, but they do need a third guy there that could able to score and do something, but also do a lot of the stuff that those two dudes ain't going to do. To me, I think they need a consistent scorer as well. So that's also why I don't mind the Bane going away, because I was like, a lot of them, because like Bane, I was like, sometimes he got to, but I was like, he just sort of be throwing up shots, but sometimes he got to, because I was like, Jaren Jackson sometimes be throwing up shots. I was like, he's a good player, but he sometimes just pissed me off, where he just sort of just like, I'm like, you ain't have to shoot that 3, dude. And sometimes with Ja, I'm like, sometimes Ja will be hot, and you can see what he was of the superstar thing, and then sometimes he's just cold, or just not actually involved in the game. So I was like, best case scenario with these draft picks is, to be honest, I think what they might be betting on is that they could find somebody that's really good and then like gets really good to where they can be like, all right, we can get rid of one of these 2 dudes. Or, you know, I think that's sort of what it is. It's almost like, okay, this guy, I was like, Ja's really good, but if we can find somebody that we could at some point be like, all right, this is the dude that we're going to really shift the team to. To me, like, that's like Steph Curry, Monte Ellis. It was Monte Ellis' team, but when they started seeing a little bit more out of Curry, they're like, we're going to get rid of that Monte Ellis guy. You know, so, and, you know, I think some teams are sort of like this as well, too, where it's like, is that dude good enough to where we could get rid of this guy, or do we just need to have him as a tandem? John Wall, Bradley Beal, I sort of think that's way too. I was like, Bradley Beal got good enough to where it's like, and also John Wall got hurt, but Beal got good enough to where they could get rid of John Wall. I was like, to me, I think that might be their best case scenario, but we won't know that for a good while as well. So I was like, I don't think the trade is something that's just, you know, everybody tripping on the 4 first round picks. I'm like, yo, you gotta stop looking at these first round picks like that. There's too many players coming into the league now, and there's too many players that are just able to hit the floor and just start running. and just start showing that they're already able to play. To me, that you could fill out this team pretty well. Plus, with the 4 first round picks, I was like, you see what like Oklahoma's able to do. Because at some point, yeah, they're going to have to make a decision of Dub and I was like Chet, and also filling out the rest of that roster, and they're going to let some of those dudes go. But their first round picks are going to plug in for them guys, or eventually be good enough that they're like, we're not going to give you that max contract. I'm sorry, you go find it somewhere else, or we're going to trade you, and we already got a player that's going to replace you. They got a good way of filling that out. I was like, I think that's sort of the model they might be going to more so than like the Jazz, who are just collecting players. And to me, that's where the first round picks don't mean anything to me. Oklahoma City, they mean something. The Jazz, they don't mean anything. They're just getting players, and they're just getting players. They're really kind of like the process early on, where it's just like they're just getting players, but they're just there. Nobody cares at that point. Where Oklahoma City is like, okay, they're going to get some dudes, develop them. They're going to come rotation players. Maybe they come a little something more. Maybe they can trade them off for some other pieces. Maybe they replace the people that they got. To me, that's where I feel like the Grizzlies are doing with this, where it's like you give away one of your third guy, but you're hoping that the first round picks come in and plug in and like not only just fill out the roster, but also maybe develop them in that same spot. That's why KCP is really a good get here, is because it's like, his spot is solidified for right now, that if you do get somebody, you don't have to just throw them into the fire or nothing like that. They can ease their way through and stuff like that. So I think this actually is a really good trade for both teams. Now, I will say on the Grizzlies side, I was like, expect a little bit of a slide. Expect a slide. I still think they're like I think they're just a play-in team at this moment, unless they get somebody that we don't see coming. But I was like the ceiling of, could y'all be like possibly playing for like anywhere between 3 and 7? I was like, I think it's more realistic that you're sort of playing for like 7 to 10. I was like, I think it will be a hard year, just kind of said those dudes do get hurt as well, but I think they at least got a team that will be steady in the playoff hunt as well. But now, I was like, I will say, with this, and I was like, I done put them in a couple other spots, but I was like, could a DeMar DeRozan work here? I was like, I don't know about the coach, and I was like, they might want to go young, then get the DeRozan, because that seemed like a real, like, we're close here type of move. But I was just thinking, I was like, he could plug in at that spot, get somebody another consistent score. I was like, to me, he could play with the squad as well. I was like, he could play. He could be the. I was like, he could shoot. He could score the ball if need be, but he can also be complimentary with everybody else, especially at this stage. That I'm just like, he might just be a good person to have, and while you have somebody that you can bring up instead of not. That's, like I said, forcing them into a spot. But anyway, good trade, both teams. I was like, elevates the Magic, and I think it puts more hope into whatever that the Grizzlies will be trying to do later on. Their side is really a whole money thing, whereas the Magic is actually trying to win here in that situation. Anyway, go ahead and let me think what y'all do, what y'all think, what would y'all do with these first round picks, what they mean, is it nothing? We'll see. Yeah, anyway, till then, peace. We out.